on people. Now, we will be taking a look at our discussion of today, and now the story goes this way. The Central Bank of Nigeria said that the idea behind the bank's interventions in the real economy was to indirectly influence the cost of production for firms and affect prices positively by improving the flow of credit. The Apex Bank said due to the limited physical space as a result of the significant drop in government revenue, the CBN had to intervene with development finance tools and some monetary policy innovations to aid recovery without jeopardizing prices stability. Now, but how well has the role of the central bank in managing the economic downturns shaped the economy? We'll be getting perspectives from a financial analyst, Mukhtar Mohammed, who joins us via Skype from Lagos. Good morning, Mukhtar. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Always a pleasure to be on Daybreak. Good morning from Lagos. There is a rainy day in Lagos today.
Well, then, good to have you. Now, let's talk about, your assessment of the role of the central bank, in terms of some of these interventions that we have seen so far. Are we really realizing the set out goals?
Well, depend on which side of the device you are. And if you're a rice farmer, you will see seeing those interventions. But if they are translating into the price of rice in the market, that's another subject for another day. But we'll say those interventions are really giving the necessary result. If you look at the rice pyramid in Abuja, and like I said, it has not come down to the price of rice in the market, especially the local rice. Other interventions, I don't think the CBN interventions have really made so much impact, like we say. And though they may say they've had impact here and there, but it's not so glaring, because when you talk about economic impact, the first thing that you think about economic impact is if the price of rice was up. And for the past 3 years, the CBN have intervened in that sector. We should see the price of rice coming down. But then again, there are other factors that the CBN have no control over, despite their interventions. And some of those factors has nothing to do with fiscal policies. I mean, monetary policy has a lot to do with fiscal policy. When you talk about infrastructure, when you talk about cost of transportation, when you talk about land use, as using them as an asset to collect loans, all these are not in the place of CBN to amend or to solve. It's in the place of the physical side. So if the monitoring side is doing all they can and the physical side is not doing what they have to do, definitely we won't see those impact. And I think that is what is happening now. The CBN keep throwing a lot of its resources, funding, expertise, advice to some of these key sectors. But the physical side is still a challenge, especially when you look at in the area of electricity, which has to do with the cost of production. Also, when you look at the road, also has to do with cost of production. When you look at a lot of things that the CBN has done, but unfortunately, the physical side is not doing theirs.
Let's take a look at, just yesterday, the president is making a boast about Nigeria being a fertilizer powerhouse. We saw that report earlier on. And when we saw the prices of fertilizer in the market, it doesn't correspond, with what the president is saying. So why, in your opinion, do we not see? Well, you've talked about, other factors like, from the physical side and in terms of other issues of infrastructural development in the country as it affects production and all of that. But specifically, if you look at, interventions regarding, fertilizer and some of these industries and sectors, why is it not translating into, affordable pricing for farmers, at least locally?
Yes, it's not translating to that. Like I said, you look at three sides of inflations. We look at inflation that is caused by market forces. We look at microeconomic inflation, and we look at cost inflation. As it stands now, cost inflation, market inflation, and economic inflation are all playing at once. So when you see all this inflation comes, no matter the policy you do, you tend not to achieve those results. Like if you talk about the fertilizer plant, most of those equipment that they use in the fertilizer plant, most of the machines are not manufactured in Nigeria, they're manufactured abroad. They can only be fabricated here. And then you come to what we've been talking about, exchange rate volatility. They have to source for FX to be able to bring these machines into the country. So that increase the cost of production. Then you need to look at demands and supplies in these fertilizer plants. Where are they located? Where is the movement of this fertilizer from point A to point B? Where is the demand high? And where are they able to meet supplies of this? So those are part of the major challenges that you see that is causing the cost of all these goods and services goes up. But you might say it again, the economics or the government will tell you that if not for this intervention, maybe the prices would have been more than where they are. But I think no matter what we do, if we are not able to fix power, the fertilizer plants are not going to operate on their own. They are going to operate based on power. And now we have had epileptic power supply for the past 2 months, and so they are going to operate on diesel. And to make you to give it to you understanding that most of these fertilizer plants are even cut off from the national grid. They tend to do their own power plant. They tend to run their own power plant, and this power plant is being driven by diesel. And you know the cost of diesel also have continuously goes up. So it's not just about addressing those bringing those companies. Why is it that Toyota, despite Nigeria being the hub of his cars, are not manufacturing cars in Nigeria? It's because of power. Because if power is not there, the cost of production will be high. And once the cost of production is high, then the cost of those cars are high. And when those costs of those cars are high, most Nigerians will not be able to purchase those ones. So then it, at the end of the day, affect the company bottom line. So companies or industry look at cost of production, look at how do I reduce cost and maximize profit. And this profit in turn will have a snowball effect by creating employment. So once those indices are lacking, then there is a challenge. And definitely, while you've seen the cost of fertilizer, you've seen it in the cost of rice, you've seen it in the cost of other like the cotton industry that the CBN are saying they are going to, the textile industry that they are going to intervene. You see all this thing play out because cost of production is still very high. One, like I said, infrastructure. Two, we must not forget that we have an exchange rate volatility. That volatility is not being solved now because of the CBN is telling a lot of the revenue that is supposed to come to them to defend the currency to be able are now being driven by oil thieves. So it's a big challenge. And CBN is not in the place of CBN to provide security. Also, remember again that some of the fertilizer plants are beginning to provide security for themselves. So all this will play in back to the consumer. The consumer must take a chunk of those expenditure from those companies.
Mukhtar, it's interesting you mentioned the cost of production, which is affecting most of these interventions that the CBN is doing. And, you know, this cost of production is likely based on the value of Naira today. Would you say that the CBN has done enough to stabilize the Naira?
Well, they have done what the best could do, because you see, in the stability of the exchange rate, it's a two-way system. It's normal economic indices, demands and supply. Once demands are met, once you have supply to meet demands, then definitely you maintain stability. But once demand is not made and supply is low, then you will see a spike in price. So once what you're seeing in this exchange rate volatility is that we are operating a CBN control exchange rate, even in the import-export window. The only place we don't have CBN control the rate is in the parallel market that has to do with the bureau de change. And before now, CBN used to play that sector, but now they are no more playing that sector because they feel that sector is in a lot of money laundering and corruption. So they are out of that space. That is why you are seeing those people. That CBN is not able to meet every legitimate demand of FX from Nigerians, especially the manufacturing sectors. And these companies have to run. So they will definitely fall back to the parallel market, which they are going to be getting it at a higher rate. And then you need to look at time. Time is what drives a company to meet its demand, to meet its customers' demand. Once it comes to those FX rate, By the time you go to the CBN policy, you go to your bank, it takes sometimes they tell you 7 working days, sometimes they tell you 5 working days, sometimes they tell you 2. But with the bureau de changes, we're going back to the parallel market, you get it as when you do, as long as you're able to pay the price. So they look at that and say, look, it's better because at the end of the day, that difference will be poured back to the consumer, not really to them. They will still make profit. Maybe they may not make enough profit like they would make if the CBN was supplying them. So the challenge in the FX market is not because CBN cannot meet demand. It's because CBN is not able to meet those demands enough to meet those demands that are so. And the challenge again is that we are now not having supplies. Remember, supplies used to come by foreign direct investors, supply used to come by portfolio investors, supply used to come by Nigerian from the diaspora. But since the advent of COVID-19, we have not seen this play out, especially from Nigerian remitters from the diaspora. We are not seeing that. That was one area that we're able to stabilize the currency. We are not seeing that anymore. Then again, we have these other factors that I mentioned that have come to play the area of demand. And then, like I said, oil thief also is not helping because the kind of revenue that the CBN is supposed to be making, they are not making it. They are, especially with the cost of crude going this high. And you must also forget that it's the same thing. Most of this money that the CBN, the NNPC is supposed to earn, then in the long run, remit it to the Federation account, which is the CBN. They will have a supply of this. It's been also spent on petroleum subsidy. So it's a whole lot of challenges that the CBN are trying to cope with to bring stability. But the basic thing that the only way that the CBN can maintain the stability of the exchange rate through market forces, number one, is to allow a free flow of the Naira. Then number two is to be able to attract enough FX into the system to be able to meet legitimate demand. And then for CBN to go further, to create a market, a market either through the banking sector or they're already working on that says that by December, every bank should in turn begin to meet demand. So they need to come out with a product to meet that bureau de change sector that is now not there entirely and not meeting the demands of those small SMEs that need just $1,000, that need $2,000 to be able to bring in goods to supply to their customers. So okay, it's a whole lot. It's not just a one-off issue.
Okay, Mukhtar, you mentioned the fact that currently the global crude oil prices is on a very high. Is on high right now, and everyone is thinking, how best can Nigeria take advantage of this? What are our chances, especially if you look at the fact that we are not even able to meet up with the quota that OPEC have set for Nigeria. So how can we, increase our production at the end of the day so that we can be able to, increase our forex?
Number one is security. If you watch the group managing director of NNPC, you watch this, listen to him. You listen to all of them. They seem to be saying one language. We are not able to meet our quota, not because we don't have enough, but because of oil thief. And when it comes to oil thief, who else can stop that? The security apparatus, and who is in control of security? The federal government. So it's a straight question, it's a great answer. Begin to see how you can be able to fortify securities, especially in the area of production, especially empowering the Navy to begin to patrol the waterways, to know most of all these oil thieves are perpetrated in Nigerian waters. So we need to empower the Navy to begin to, and that again, like I said, it will come at a cost. So I think the basic thing that we're not able to meet up that is just because of securities. And again, when we are able to meet up the little quota, remember the swap deal is still there to be able to swap some of our crude to get refined product. So we still come back to that challenge of subsidy. So it's a monster that I refuse to leave to us. And it's a monster that every government have tried to avoid. They lack the political will. This was the only government that I thought will get the political will because of the backing he has of the people. But unfortunately, I think they lost those political will. They lost the political will because they are entering into an election year. The price of crude, like the Minister for State said some time ago, is supposed to be a blessing when the price of crude goes up. But unfortunately for Nigeria, once the price of crude goes up, it becomes like a cost, because instead of revenue going up, revenue is coming down because we are spending so much on the importation of a refined petroleum product. So it's a challenge. How do we meet up to demands? Fine. First of all, let's address security challenge. Second, let's see how we can do more of our local refining of our petroleum product here. Though you say it's not going to drastically reduce the price, because you're looking at, you will still be buying crude. Those companies, Dangote Refinery will buy crude from NNPC at the international price. If it is $140, it will by then. We come back to what we've been saying is the cost of production. But you are going to see cost of production comes down because Dangote Refinery will not be bringing those crude oil to the seaport that will attract charges from NEMASA, charges from other security agency or agent of government that are on the port. So that is the only way that will bring costs. And by the time you remove all these costs from there, then you see the cost of production has come down. Then the cost of that crude will come down because we are doing local refinery. Unfortunately, we are not doing that. So it's a long way to go.
Mukhtar, some people have said that it's good that the CBN is making interventions in the economy. However, some people have said that it appears the CBN has its hand in every pie, and they have this thinking that if it selects just a few, the impact of its intervention will be more in the economy. What do you say to that?
Exactly. And not even connecting a few. CBN is not supposed to be intervening directly in the economy. It's not in the role of CBN to intervene directly in the economy. There's no rule that CBN is a monetary policy. It's supposed to be, formulate monetary policy. That is all that CBN. CBN is supposed to formulate monetary policy that will bring down inflation. CBN is supposed to bring monetary policy that will bring down the cost of funding. So as it stands, CBN have left its legitimate rule, which is to bring stability. And even if you talk about the exchange rate, those are the rules that the CBN is supposed to bother themselves about, not bothering themselves about direct intervention. What CBN should begin to do was to begin to see how they can mandate deposit money banks to begin to do this intervention, and CBN intervene directly through the bank, through the bank to meet them. Now, some of this intervention, like the rice intervention, remember there came a time that CBN was saying some of these farmers that collected these loans are not paying because CBN does not have the mechanism, the machinery to monitor what is happening. Are this loan being paid? Because it is not in their place to give loan. So it's a big challenge because CBN continuously intervene because, like I said, CBN wants its monetary policy impact to be felt. And they know that if the physical side is not doing well, then their monetary policy impact will not be felt. And that has been their major challenge of them. So in the bid to let people know that our impact is being felt, that is why they try to go into those sectors. Whether they are going to directly intervene only in one sector, whether they are going to directly intervene in only rice, they are going to directly intervene in only infrastructure. Remember, CBN has come up with the infrastructural bank also to begin to deal with infrastructural challenge. This seems to be everywhere because if they don't do that, if they don't do that, they know that continuously their monetary policy will just be bouncing back to them. There will not be any effect on the ordinary Nigeria.
We have quite a lot really to chew, but at this point, unfortunately, we have to end the discussion. We do appreciate you and thank you for joining us at this hour to discuss these issues. Thank you again. We look forward to having you.
My pleasure anytime. Thank you. Good morning.